Okay, so we're going to take a quick look at quadratic formulas and their solutions. We've already looked at solutions that can be decimals. We've looked at solutions that may be no real solutions. We looked at radicals that had zeros, but there is another option. We could leave our final solution in radical form. So for instance, I have 9 plus or minus the square root of 24 over 2. Now this is the part of the radical. Remember the square root symbol? That makes this a radical. And you're like, well, the square root of 24. Well, let's just over here off to the side, just think about our perfect squares. 2 squared, well, 2 squared equals 4. 3 squared, well, 3 squared equals 9. 4 squared, well, 4 squared equals 16, right? Well, 24 is not going to work here because 5 squared is going to be 25. But could I divide 24 by one of these perfect squares? And I can divide 24 by 4. So another way I could write this would be 9 plus or minus the square root of 4 times the square root of 6, because the square root of 4 times the square root of 6 equals the square root of 24 over 2. Now think about that. What is the square root of 4? Well, the square root of 4 is 2. So I could say that my answer here is 9 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 6. Now this is a grouping symbol, so we just put the 2 right up against it, over 2. That works. That is a simplified form if we're writing it in radical form and we're not turning it into a decimal. Now take a look at this guy over here. I've got negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 12. Now 12 is not a perfect square, but 4 will divide in there. So I can say, well, this is the same thing as negative 4 plus or minus. I'm going to write this a little different. Sometimes you'll see people write it this way. Well, that'd be like 4 times 3. Still correct way of writing that. Over 2. Now I'm going to pull out the part that's the square root of 4. Square root of 4, well, that's 2. 2 times 2 equals 4. So I'm going to take this out and put it in front. So I'm going to rewrite that as 2 times the square root of 3. I performed the operation of the square root of 4 over 2. Now this is a little different. See, in our first one, we had 9 divided by 2. Well, 9 divided by 2, 2 will not go into 9 evenly. So we just kind of left it alone. But in this case, I have a 2 and a 4, and I have a 2 and a 2. That means that I can simplify this entire fraction. Now be careful here. The 2 needs to divide into all terms, so it has to divide into both. So they'll both divide by 2. So if I divide negative 4 by 2, that's negative 2. And if I divide 2 by 2, that's 1. And the whole idea was to turn this 2 into a 1 as well. Now, I'm going to rewrite this. Negative 2 plus or minus, it's the same as 1 times the square root of 3, but we don't write the 1, kind of like 1x. We just write what happens after. So I could say that this answer simplified is negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 3. So be careful with these, take your time, and work your way through the maze.